historians. Welcome to Decoding the Test and a quick look at the Cold War. Now, as always, keep in mind, this is not everything I would want you to know about the Cold War. In fact, there's a lot I would want you to know about the Cold War. You can see those details in front of you. Instead, this is a look at where the test has focused in the last few years. And when you look at that, we can boil it down to a few takeaway areas. We can boil it down to the economic boom that accompanied the GI Bill. We can boil it down to the crisis moments of the Cold War. We can boil it down to Vietnam. We can boil it down to executive power. We can boil it down to the Korean War, and we can boil it down to detente. Finally, we can boil it down to what I call the containment/domino theory, or how we dealt with communism. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. There are really three terms you need to know in order to get these questions right. The first one is the Marshall Plan. Now, George C. Marshall was the Secretary of State following World War II, and his plan involved giving money to the war-torn European countries to rebuild. So America giving money to European countries to rebuild. That's the Marshall Plan. Why? And what does it have to do with communism? Well, the idea was that someone was going to give these countries money, and those countries were liable to be friends with the countries that gave them money. So it was going to be us or the Soviets providing money for rebuilding. If it was us, those countries were liable to support us in our fight against communism. You see that tested right here. We have a diagram. It talks about World War II devastating economies and infrastructure. It's got a box that says U.S. response, and this is a question mark. And then finally, you have effects on Western Europe. Improved political stability, closer ties with the United States, recovering economies. What is in the middle? Well, in the middle is the Marshall Plan. D. Congress passes a bill to provide financial assistance to Western European countries. You see, I almost showed you wrong right there. Okay, notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't actually say Marshall Plan. This is something the test does over and over and over again. It bypasses that proper noun that would actually kind of give you a hint as to what the answer is. It bypasses that and goes to what that proper noun stands for. In this case, the Marshall Plan was a bill passed by Congress to provide financial assistance to Western European countries. But they've gone for the definition versus the actual tagline. If I was, just answering this without multiple choice, just fill in the blank, I would just put Marshall Plan. But they don't do that. So just kind of be prepared for that. What is the Marshall Plan? Know what it's for. Now here you have a box that describes a Geneva conference to unify Vietnam under a single leadership. And it notes that the United States didn't approve it. Why not? This is talking about containment. Containment. What is containment? The idea of containment was put forward by a man named George Kennan. And his idea was that communism had to be contained where it was. You couldn't let it spread because communism was aggressive and expansionist. If you let it spread, it would take advantage. It would keep going. So the idea is containment. So this right here, which is talking about Vietnam being unified under a single leadership, well, we didn't want that because we were afraid that leadership would be communist. Now, it helps to actually know the history of Vietnam and our role in that, and that's something that is one of the areas you'll have to know for the Cold War. But here it's talking about containment, containing the communists where they are. Now, some of the other terms do sound good, like deterrence, peaceful coexist. These terms sound good, but keep this in mind. The three terms you really need to know for the Cold War as far as reactions to communism is the Marshall Plan, containment, and the domino theory. You can usually get by with just those three terms. Now, the last term, the domino theory, actually shows up in the question, and it just asks you basically what was the domino theory. And the idea of the domino theory is that if you let one country in Southeast Asia become communist, it makes it easier for the next country to become communist, which makes it easier for the next country to become communist, like a bunch of falling dominoes. This choice is answer F, the expansion of communism across Southeast Asia. Usually when we talk about the domino theory, you're talking about Southeast Asia specifically. Containment is communism everywhere. The domino theory is communism in Southeast Asia. So Those are the three terms you really need to know about dealing with communism. The Marshall Plan being economic assistance to Western Europe to kind of bribe them into not falling for the communists. Containment, which is we need to contain communism where it's at, not let it spread. And the domino theory. If it does spread, especially in Southeast Asia, it's going to make it easier for another country to become communist, which is going to make it easier for the next country. If there's no questions, comments, or screams of angst, I'll see you in the next video.